Hello, my name is Amber Lawson, and this is my original contribution for my master's in early childhood education through the American College of Education. So, what is emotional regulation? Emotional regulation involves managing emotions, even when they feel overwhelming. This can be especially difficult for our early childhood students. It includes resisting strong reactions and calming yourself down in order to handle frustration or other strong emotions. The ability to do this is based on a variety of factors, including biology, skills that have been learned, motivation, support from caregivers, and environmental context. Emotional regulation has become a hot topic in the early childhood field because of COVID 19. Due to the pandemic, we had lots of isolation and stress, which affect young children just the same as they do the adults. Isolation causes children to have less social interaction than they otherwise would, and therefore they miss out on lots of learning activities, including the learning of social skills for school. Schools are rightfully focusing more on mental health and self regulation due to this. When children know how to regulate their emotions, they tend to have higher academic achievement, as they typically have better performance on cognitive tasks. They also have better mental health and social skills, which leads to the development of friendships. And the development of friendships has been shown to improve behaviors overall. It also facilitates school readiness as students are able to behave according to school expectations. Preschool is a crucial time for emotional regulation, as this is when children are starting to recognize emotions. They're especially able to do this through the use of pictures and adult help. They are developing strategies to solve problems, such as deep breathing when they're feeling frustrated, and learning how to share with friends. This is the start of early empathy. Students are beginning to understand the way others feel and understand that other people have feelings too. One way to help preschool students develop these important skills is co regulation. This means we need to set up clear rules, consistent natural or logical consequences when those rules are not followed, structured, predictable environments, as young students especially thrive when there's a routine. Warm, responsive caregivers are a must, and explicit teaching and practice of self regulation skills in order to develop them. Once these predictable routines and environments have been established, it's important to help students learn how to express their emotions. Children need to be able to name their emotions, as sometimes they just don't have the vocabulary to understand what it is they're feeling. It's important to validate their feelings and to provide a calming space to take a break when those feelings get too big. One way to create a safe, calm space where students can take a break is to designate an area of your classroom to be your calm corner. In this space, you're going to have lots of tools where students can understand their emotions by naming them and tools that they can use to calm down when they're feeling those big feelings. That's why it's important to develop some rules for your calm corner because you don't want them to just go over there all the time and start playing with these resources. So, some special rules that you can have for this area that will help keep it organized and make it a safe space for students is to only have one child at a time. When they're expressing these big feelings, they really need space. So, having more than one child would not be helpful. It's also important to have an adult that can monitor the area. This is especially important because they need adult help in order to express their emotions and learn the vocabulary to say what it is they're feeling. It's also important that they always stay safe and follow the directions of your calm corner and to complete an emotional check in and check out. This is the important part where they're going to identify their emotions and where they especially need that adult support. It's really helpful to have pictures of people and especially children showing lots of different facial expressions, as this can help the child point to the pictures and then the adult can help them name what that feeling is. This will help them develop their vocabulary in order to express their emotions in a positive way. The items in the space should always stay in that space, and they should always be held responsible for cleaning up before they leave. This is the first resource I've created for you to help you in helping students develop these emotional regulation strategies. These slides will help students identify their emotions, just like I talked about in the previous slide. It shows lots of pictures of children showing different facial expressions and doing different things so that students can identify how they're feeling. To use this resource, students simply click on the picture that shows what they're feeling, and it will take them to a slide that relates to that feeling and helps them find strategies that are appropriate in the classroom for helping them manage those emotions. For example, the first one is just a happy face. However, if students are choosing to use these slides, they're probably feeling a little bit out of control or wiggly. So, some options, if they say they're feeling happy, would just be to use something like a wobble stool or a fidget toy to help them get back on task in whatever you were doing in the classroom. The next one shows a sad face. The child's laying his head down on the table there. So, some strategies that would be really helpful are breathing, like deep breathing. So, in my classroom, I have these breathing boards that I got from Amazon where the students just use their finger to trace the lines in the board. And while they're doing that, they're taking deep breaths. So, one of the boards is a rainbow. They trace their finger and they breathe in as they go up each arch and down as each time they go down, they breathe out. Another thing a lot of my early childhood students love, especially my preschoolers, is plush animals. So we have a llama llama because we read a lot of llama llama stories. They love to squeeze and hug the llama llama. So this can be something that's really helpful when they're feeling sad. If they're feeling sick, of course, I want to address illness if it's an illness. So I have a picture of myself there. That means they need to come talk to me. Or maybe it's just because their tummy hurts, they're hungry. That's pretty frequent for preschool age students. So I have some snacks or they can get some water in the classroom. The next one shows what to do if they're feeling scared. We have a really special spot in our classroom where they can just cozy up in an individual little chair where they can kind of hide themselves if they're feeling nervous, or again, using those breathing boards. Next, we have the really excited, out of control feelings. If they're feeling really silly, they can use those breathing boards to calm back down, or they can do an exercise like jumping jacks to help get some of those wiggles out. The last one shows a little girl who's feeling very angry. Those breathing boards are great. Again, we can incorporate those for lots of feelings. Or we have a special area in our classroom where we put all of our extra papers. They can crinkle them up, step on them, rip them. It doesn't matter. They're just extra papers that I normally would have thrown in the trash anyways. And then once they get their frustrations out, they can throw it away. These are just some tools you could use. You're welcome to make a copy of this resource and modify it, change those pictures to things that are in your own classroom, but it'll give you some ideas to give you a good start. So, what do you do when these calming strategies are not enough and behaviors start to escalate? This is when it's important to understand the difference between consequences and punishments. Consequences seek to solve a problem and help the student develop the skills necessary so that it doesn't continue being a problem. It's not just about punishing the child. These must be related to the problem in order for students to understand and want to fix the behaviors. And adults must be calm and matter of fact when implementing them. Children should always be respected just like adults are, so it's important to stay calm and not do this in an angry way or when we're feeling frustrated ourselves, as we want to model those calming strategies for our students too. So, here's some examples that you can use in your own classroom of natural and related consequences. Whenever possible, allow children to experience the results of their actions. Natural consequences are the best. The results are related to the action, it's naturally what happens. There's an emphasis on their behavior that way and the natural consequences that it causes. And this allows children to learn from their experiences. It's not something that's inflicted by adults like punishment would be, so there's no resentment building there. It's just what they experience naturally. Now, sometimes that might not be a safe option. So, if natural consequences are too dangerous, you need to use related consequences. And there's lots of different examples of doing this. There's kind of four main areas. So, the first is reciprocity. This is like when a child refuses to do their work, you can have them complete the work before they're allowed to play. In my classroom, this would be like our free choice time. I'm not just taking away recess and making them sit in a timeout and do nothing. Then they're just getting angry at me. That would be a punishment, but making them do their work before they're allowed to go play is directly related to the problem behavior and will teach them not to mess around when it's time to do their work. So that next time, hopefully, we're starting to shift that behavior. The next type is exclusion. This would be exactly where our calm corner comes in. This can be teacher or student initiated. So if a student is out of control and they're not recognizing it in themselves, which often in preschool they won't at first, we can help guide them to go take that time in, not time out, but a time in their calm corner so that they can regulate their emotions. As you start doing this more and more, students will start to recognize when their emotions are getting out of control and they'll probably start initiating it. That's our hope. The next type of consequence is deprivation. That's where they don't get something. So, not being able to play with materials if they misuse them. For example, if a student is ripping up all the worksheets, they cannot do that paper. So, they will miss out on the fun thing because they wrecked it. It's important to allow them to come back to it when they're ready, when you give deprivation consequences, so that it puts it in their control. So that way it doesn't become a punishment. The last type is restitution, which is taking care of something that you ruined. So it might be cleaning up your own mess if you make a mess, or it might be bringing a friend a band aid if you accidentally hurt them. It's important to understand, though, that this only works if there's remorse. If a student hurts another kid and there's no remorse there, they're not going to understand restitution. It's not going to help them. So that would be a totally different issue where other consequences would need to come into play. It's also important, no matter what kind of consequence you're using, to acknowledge the feelings that led up to the incident because it's important to understand the cause in order to really help them solve that behavior problem. So here comes my second resource for you. This is another slides presentation, kind of like the first one, but this one is all related to using consequences with giving children the if then choices with student visuals, just like the first set of slides. So when the calming strategies didn't work, behaviors escalated, now we're having other issues, we can tell them exactly what to expect depending on their behaviors. Now, some of these can be actually positive things. If they're staying on the carpet when they're supposed to, in my classroom, we use a positive reinforcement strategy where I give them stars and they have a little chart. Once they get 5 stars, they get to pick out of the treasure box or pick a brain break, which they love to pick some of the Danny Go songs on YouTube. So I have a Danny Go picture there because that's what we would use in my class. If they stay at a station, same thing. They can earn their star. They can pick out one of our little brain break songs so that they can have a break. And they love to be the boss and get to pick what we're doing. So that's really reinforcing for our preschool age kids. Then come the not so positive behaviors. If they're off task, this is really common. If they're not listening, that's kind of like that last example I gave in the other slide. They're going to finish their work during their free choice time. So they know, and I will show them these visuals when that's happening to remind them and reinforce that idea. If you're messing around when you're supposed to be working, remember that when it's time for free choice today, you're going to have to go finish that work before you get to go. And your friends are going to start playing before you. So you might miss out a little bit. This sometimes can change the behavior right away because they're realizing, oh, I don't want to miss out on that free time. If they're doing something unsafe like running inside, often that one's related to having too much energy. So they love to do jumping jacks or push ups, or I have some great wobble stools in here where they can just get some wiggles out. When they're having a hard time regulating their emotions, if any of the behaviors are due to regulating themselves, then that's where those calming strategies come back in. So that links back to the calming strategies that they can utilize in order to calm themselves back down, get back on task, feel better about themselves. This can also work really well too when there's any kind of physical aggression. We need to remove them from the situation, remove them from the child that they've harmed, and give them a time to reflect and calm their own emotions down before getting back with the rest of the group. Related consequences, like when they make a mess, they need to tidy it back up. Now, here's an important one for my preschool age students. One of the most important safety behaviors that I have is eloping. When a student tries to run from class, I can't monitor them, or my paraprofessionals won't be able to monitor them because they're not in visual sight for us. And that becomes a safety concern. We always want to have our kids where we can see them. So, my easy fix for that is that next time we're going to have to hold my hand, we're going to walk over there together and they're going to have to stay right next to me that way. It's just an easy way to keep them safe so that they're not running off where we can't monitor them. Just like my other resource, these are completely adaptable for your own students. These will just give you some ideas of some of the behaviors that I deal with my preschool students and some strategies that I've used that have worked for me. But you are welcome to change them to resources that you have in your own classroom or other strategies that you just want to give a try. There's a lot of great information out there about emotional regulation, especially as it pertains to our preschool students. But I hope that these slides help you understand it a little better and just give you the tools you need to implement them easily in your classroom. I hope that you got some great ideas from these presentations and the resources I'm providing you. Please let me know in the comments what works for you and if there's anything else you'd like me to add. As an early childhood educator myself, it's my goal to help my students learn the skills they need to succeed in my classroom, but not just that, it's going to help them succeed for the rest of their lives. And I hope that this helps your students do the same. Thank you.